Well, thank you, Isaiah, for meeting us this morning, for doing this interview with Latina Action Network Foundation. We appreciate your time. And we are going to ask you questions about the Black voices on the Latino community, right? Like what's happening, how you actually feel, just in general. So we want this to be as natural and as organic as possible.
Okay.
We can start off with one question and then you just take off from there.
Okay.
All right? Okay, so our first question is, tell us how you identified yourself racially.
I'll say I'm Afro-Latino. So I know that this usually deals with people who have migrated into the country. I was born in the country, but I grew up very, very traditionally Spanish, if you will. Puerto Rican to be exact. I am 50% Puerto Rican, 50% Panamanian. I didn't grow up with the Panamanian side, that's my dad's side. I grew up predominantly Boricua with my mom. It took me a while to identify as Afro-Latino because I didn't even know that was a distinction. So just growing up, I was Boricua, and I was a darker one, if you will, because that's what they would say, you're a darker Puerto Rican. So that's pretty much what I identify as Afro-Latino.
And can you tell us more about, well, you say you were born here, but you say something about you were identified more as a darker one, right, in the family.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that, because I think that's something very important to bring up in this interview, and to tell us what was your experience like to know that you were like the darker one of the family. How did it make you feel?
So to be fair, like I'll say my family is pretty 50%. Like my great grandmother, she herself was she was my complexion, but my mom is like fair skinned, if you will. So walking down the block with my mom and then her speaking to me in Spanish and then me responding in Spanish, people are like, wait, what? Because then I have this hair. Right now it looks a little human, but when it's going, it's going. I got naps, all of that stuff, if I don't take care of it for a little bit. But growing up, being a darker Spanish guy and people saying, so I'm not quite Spanish enough to be accepted with the Spanish, but I'm not black enough to be accepted with my African American friends. So when I would be around my African American friends, it's like, oh, you're the Spanish guy. When I'm around my Spanish friends, it's like, oh, you're the black one. You know what I mean? So growing up with that dynamic, it was a little bit disheartening at first, because it's just like, I'm just me, I'm just trying to be myself, and due to color and race is like, all right, where do I fit in? And I had to kind of figure that out, and to the point where I stopped speaking Spanish when I was young, because I was just like, I spoke terribly, and then two, it was weird. It didn't feel, accepted. So when I spoke Spanish to them, they knew I was speaking a little bad, but they would make me feel worse because they're like, what the hell are you saying? So it just became a thing where it was like, it took away a lot of my confidence. And I was just like, all right, whatever, I'm just gonna be me. And if people ask, I'll tell them. If they don't, I won't bring it up, type of thing. So I kind of just meandered in that space for a little while. Yeah.
Well, that was that was very impressive, and it's very understandable, because a lot of times when people see when people see Black people, either in the Latino community or outside the Latino community, but especially in the Latino community, they see you speak Spanish and just look at you like,
exactly. Especially me.
What's going on?
Especially because when I talk, everybody, and I'm like, oh, pareció como morenito, ¿verdad? And they're like, wait, what? Like, perdón, no, I'll let you talk your crap about me. And I understood every word about it. I would walk into a store, like a Spanish store. Oh, mira, pon atención a él. Why? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't understand you. Why are you telling him to pay attention to me for? Those type of things where they don't know that they're talking about you. So catching people off guard like that in train rides and bus rides, my whole life it's just been hilarious for me. It used to hurt, but now it's just like, really, like, we're still doing that, So I kind of got over it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So on that, talking about that, this next question actually, we can go deeper on that, however you feel. How do you think people see you racially based on your experiences, since, well, you were born here, you didn't come, you didn't migrate from the outside, but you know, being born here is still having to go through those experiences. How do you think people actually see you based on your race?
Well, for the most part, it would just be a book. Like they try to read the book without, you know, going into it. They just look at the cover, like, oh, I know what that is, and they try to label me, you know, type of things like that. I feel like when I walk into a room, it's always like, he's black, and it's like, that's fine, because ultimately I'm from Brooklyn, so I do sound away, I do look away, I do dress away, but my vernacular definitely can switch. They call it code switching now, but I don't feel like I code switch. I just feel like wherever I'm comfortable, that's where I get to, you know, open up a little more. But when I'm in these capacities, I just talk a little differently, because I noticed that that's where it's a little more acceptable socially. And then I don't have people, oh, your accent, because I do have a strong Brooklyn accent, but I try to articulate myself a little differently when I'm in certain rooms, you know. But it got to a point where now recently I don't really do that anymore. I let it flow a little bit, but I still use my powerful vocabulary to show that there is a distinction. But it was difficult growing up, because people would try to tell you who you are, instead of just accepting me and learning me. And I feel like that embracing part is where the disconnect was. Like, oh yeah, they just kind of shun you off to the side type of thing. But then when they meet you, and then you have all this perspective and vibration and everything like that, it's like, oh wow, you're great. It's like, you could have known that had you just, like, you know, sometimes you'll take I met you 3 months ago, but now I just met you type of thing. And it's just like, those would be the annoying parts about it. But I feel like as you get older, you kind of know how to navigate it a little better, and that's the suppressed trauma that you learn to cope with throughout the social nuances of just growing up, you know. So now it's just like, oh, I get it. It's something in them is hardly anything to do with you half the time, and I feel like that's where I can offer mentally now to younger ones growing up. It's like, that's their projection of their lack of self-esteem or confidence that they don't have. It's seldom to do with you and what you bring to the table. So just allow them to be them, and you continue to do what you do. Naturally, they'll gravitate over once they realize, you know, what's what.
All right. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is another question.
It's okay. It's okay. Keep coming.
Have others rejected you how you identify, because of how you identify racially?
Absolutely. For a large part of my teenage years, again with the whole, you know, black versus Afro-Latino versus just a Puerto Rican, I would be in spaces where, you know, predominantly everyone there would be fair skinned, and I'm the Afro-Latino. And then I'll talk, and this was still when I was teaching, because I had to teach myself when I got to adulthood, I had to teach myself how to speak Spanish all over again. So literally in the last 4 or 5 years is where I've like really gotten to, I won't say perfect it, because some conjugations still get me, but to a point where I can hold myself in a good conversation and actually be able to offer things. So it took a while to get to that point, but while I was growing in that space, I'll say a lot of people, especially who were Spanish and Latino and could talk Spanish very well, it'd just be like, you're just talking to me in English, or, you know, like, you don't have to try so hard and things like that. It's like, I'm not trying hard, I'm just giving effort. One, to make you feel comfortable. Then I had to realize, like, I'm the one that's not comfortable. So it got to a point where I was just like, you know, almost got me to the point where I didn't want to speak Spanish again, but then I was just like, no, I just gotta kind of push through this barrier and really just assert myself that way, and then do it with confidence, because a lot of it was confidence. It would just be like, and they'd be like, huh? And I'm like, and it's just like, yeah, you didn't say that right. But then let me retract real quick. I started working in kitchens. I was a chef, and then, as you know, it's predominantly Spanish people. Is Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican. So I would just be like, hey, look, when I talk, just correct me. And it kind of started there, but then I found that I only knew how to talk about kitchen stuff. So then I was like, okay, went into sales. Sales is like my big background. Then I learned how to sell things in Spanish. And then it was like, all right, now I just need life Spanish. And then I met my beautiful girlfriend, and then the rest is history. I've been learning a lot of Spanish from her. She's Colombian, so that's been good for me. But when it came down to it, when I would walk into these rooms and be the Afro Latino, and I would say I'm Afro Latino, they'll just be like, "Oh, you could just say you're black. You know, we're all black anyway, so you don't have to really say that part." Or they'll just be like, "Yo, just say you're Puerto Rican. You don't need to acknowledge the Afro part of it." And I'm just like, what? Like, do you see my hair? This is naps. That's Afro. 1. 2, you're not gonna tell me that my people, that, yeah, 100%, we all come from where we come from, but my people are where they're from. And my people identify as this, and I identify as them, so we are we, and I'm appreciative of that, and I'm gonna embrace it. And I feel like there's more consciousness on it now, especially in media, where people are now really identifying as Afro-Latino, and like it's becoming a thing that's socially acceptable. So like with my platform, I try to embrace it a lot. Even at a point before they made it so that I can't put because I'm verified, I can't put a certain thing in my name. I had the Puerto Rican and Panamanian flag there. I could put it in my bio. Side tip, sorry. I'm gonna put it in my bio now. But I had that there because I do want people to know, like, I'm not just black, I'm not just Spanish, I'm what I am, and embrace me as that. Or, we can have a little education talk, and that'll be it. So that's pretty much how that stemmed out.
Thank you. And piggyback from that experiences that you have had, and how people tell you what you had, not what. People say why you had to bring the Afro part, or why can you just say you're this or that? I'm gonna ask this question because I think it also will speak volume, right?
Yeah.
On the experiences. So can you briefly tell us about your experiences with your racial identity, professionally and personally? I know it sounds repetitive, but
it's okay because it's centric around one thing, and that's fine. And it's given different background and layers, so it's okay. As far as working, actually, I'm not gonna name the brand because I'm not into that, but I'll say a very, very big brand. Is a company I used to work for, and again, I grew up with the stereotype: single mom, Section 8, food stamps, the whole 9. 1-bedroom shack. Didn't have my first bedroom until I was about 15 years old. So when I walked into this brand and I was hired, it was like I got accepted here. So I'll say about 4 months into the job, one of the bigger bosses comes in, does his monthly rounds, and I had been crushing it in sales, but that's not a sales, they don't give you commission, it's not the thing. There's just really a customer service type of feel. So I was crushing it in sales though, and my customer service was great. So I asked him, hey, look, I know I'm pretty new, but what are some steps that I could be taking now to be making sure that I'm in the right type of position for when new openings do come? And he said, oh, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have a shot. Verbatim. And I was like, what? Mind you, he's like 40 years my senior, bald white guy, fits that demographic. And he just put the ceiling on me. And I knew what it stemmed from because there's no way in any shape or form he's saying that to anyone else. I didn't approach it that way though. I was just like, okay. I'm more of the I'll prove you wrong type of guy, but in that moment, I was a little younger and still a little naive to certain things, and I was all about the brand itself. And I was like, wow, I was crushed. So it kind of put me in a depressive state for a few months, and I couldn't pinpoint it until I was already out of it about a year or so later. And I was like, wow, I really let them and that get the better of me in that situation, and that's why I started going more into who I am and becoming more familiar with that, internalizing that, so that I could then project that in a way more astute way, if that makes sense. Astute? No. A more, I'll just say firm way, firm. But yeah, and then other than that, your co-workers being Spanish and not knowing I was Spanish, and me messing up on certain things and them talking crap about it and me understanding it and calling them out on it in the spot, and they're like, oh wow, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, don't be sorry, because you're only sorry you're caught. You're not sorry that you said what you said, because you didn't say it in English, so you wanted it to be intentionally hidden from me, and that's fine. And it catch them off guard, because I try to be as graceful as possible. I'm not gonna meet you at your disrespect. I'm gonna give you grace, and that's gonna make you feel worse. And I can smile with that and my Jesus on my shoulder. So professionally, it impacted me in that way, but I wouldn't say that I had many disadvantages, because I do have an abundance of energy and knowledge. So I'm always, if anything, I'm favored more, because I do look how I look, and I sound how I sound, and I offer what I offer. So I'll say sometimes it even benefited me to be other, if you will. So I'll say that. Yeah.
And I'm very impressed with your, with your life experiences.
Thank you.
This is something that, the whole purpose of all this is to bring awareness, right? To let people know it's not about division. It's not about, it's about allowing people, to bring people awareness of what's happening.
Right.
That we all come in different shapes and forms,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Latino community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes they would think like, oh, but he's black, es morenito, no entender lo que estamos diciendo, right? But in reality, it changes, right?
Yeah.
So this is very good. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
sharing.
Thank you for having me. I
For
appreciate
sharing
it.
your experiences. Do we have more time?
We're at 16 minutes.
1-6. Okay. Actually, well, when I ask another question,
Mm-hmm.
like outside the community as well, has the way you place, when racially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen like any effects on like when it comes to housing or financial or jobs?
Definitely in the housing market for sure, and in the funding area, absolutely. Because I recently was looking to purchase a home. I've been doing that for about the past 2 years, and I'll tell you this. So me and my boy, he's white. He's white. We were looking in the same area. He reached out. His name is a very favorable name. My name is Isaiah Velez. So it's either he's a black Spanish person, Isaiah Velez, or we don't know, but we're gonna go off the name. So we call the same broker. The conversation he had was different than mine. I'll tell you that, right? So we get on the phone. This is the price for you. Yes, this is what's listed, but we can work with you here. I call, there's no wiggle room. The price is firm. You know what I mean? So it's kind of gearing who could come into the area, who they want, what's more favorable to the environment, if you will. So those little things like that. And then when you walk into a bank, so I in COVID year, that's when I opened up my LLC. And then for the most part, it was difficult in those first, I'll say 2 years. And then last year, it picked up a lot towards the end. And then this year, it's just been God has been good. So when I first walked into the bank, they see the account, it doesn't have much in there, whatever. I walk in with my mentor. And he's a white guy. He's an older white guy, but a great human. Great human. I love him. Taught me a lot about this particular thing. He's like, I want to show you something. So then he showed me. He walks in. Oh, hey, mister. I walk in. Oh, yeah, we'll be with you shortly. Cool. Now, a little money's in the account. Oh, hey, Mr. Velez. Huh. So, sidebar, my friend, he recently won a lawsuit versus the state of New York. $1 million, whatever. When he would be operating his account normally, I'm talking about smacking with any type of overdraft. There's no wiggle room. There's anything that they can do for him. All these situations that popped up where he needed certain funding and this, that. Deny. He wins the lawsuit. He comes in with a check. And even the energy when he came in with the check, they're like, oh, hey, how you doing? He's like, yeah, so I wanted to make a deposit, but I need to know how this operates, this, that, and the third. They're like, yeah, so you know how it operates. It's still the same thing, this, that, and the third. Hands them the check. Oh, wow. Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Brings like the big manager. Hey, oh yeah, so we'll take you right over here. Take him to a back special room. This, that, and the third. But the difference I'm talking about in the 120-second span, the difference in his treatment from when he pulled out the $1 million check versus him walking in as just himself, it completely changed. And it was just like, this is what we deal with no matter what, right? So I could have came in just off of that energy. Lado got that. I'm not staying here with it. Give me my money. I'm gonna go to another bank. That's how he could have did that, right? But it's like, how many more banks would he have gone to and gotten the same treatment prior to giving that check? And that's the point, right? So those type of things is what I feel like just lives in our society, unfortunately. But I think that with people, not to toot my own horn, but people like me and like you guys who highlight it enough and talk about it enough, I think that it starts to change. And with our kids and our grandkids, if we have strength, it's all in the numbers, right? So the more numbers that we can bring to the table talking about these things, the more change we can get. It's obviously an uphill battle at this point because it's years of it, and it's all placated on the system, and it's all organized so that it's more of a struggle for us. But if we stop seeing it as a struggle and seeing it as something that's just something that has to be done to get to the next level, just like with a job, right? You'll endure anything that you have to get to that management position, to get to that boss and that CEO position. But seldom in life do we do what it takes to get to that next step of respect or that embrace or that acknowledgement that we need as base humans, just a basic need as a human. And that's what I feel like I'm trying to stand on. And that's why I jumped at this, because I work with kids 2-3 days a week. The conversations that I have with them are very alarming because they don't even understand self-worth. They're not being taught self-worth, and they don't even, it's so much identity crisis, right? Because you have social media telling you to be one person, you have your family telling you to be another person, you go to school, you have them telling you to be another person. So it's like, we're teaching these kids 3 different ways to be, and they don't even know how to just be themselves and be comfortable in that. Like I literally had to tell one of my students last week, he was like, I changed my opinion a lot. And he's self-conscious, he's already conscious of that and aware, but he doesn't know how to stop it. Doesn't feel like he wants to because he doesn't want to be outed. So he said he thought that this movie that just came out was horrible, but when he went to his friends, he was like, yo, it was fire. And I was like, why do you do that? He was like, well, because if I say it's bad, then they're gonna make fun of me for thinking that I'm the only one that thinks it's bad. I was like, and there's no problem with that. So I had to go, I literally stopped the lesson. Mind you, I only have 50 minutes with these kids after school. I stopped the lesson and I just went into a tangent with him, but like, your self-worth and your opinion matters. And when I said that, he was like, wow, no one's ever told me that before. No one's ever told him that his opinion mattered. His parents didn't, his teachers didn't, social media didn't. So there was no representation for that in his soul, so he didn't even resonate with it. So he literally paused for a second when it happened, and he was like, no one's genuine, no one's ever told me that. They call me, I don't tell them to call me Mr. Velez, or he's like, no one's ever told me that before, Zay. And I was like, I was like a little emotional. I'm like, well, you got it now. You know what I mean? You have it now. Run with that energy and believe in yourself, and never, ever, ever just say something to appease someone, because you're going to be the one that feels uncomfortable after every time. So stand on that belief, stand in your opinion, because it matters where it matters. If it doesn't matter with your friends, it will with the next group, or with your friends, or with your family, whoever, but it's going to matter to someone. But they'll never know if you don't allow them to. And I think I'll leave it right there.
Yes, thank you. That was very powerful. I was gonna ask you to give us like a word, for the future generations, and I think you just took it without even knowing it, and you pretty much give a really powerful closing to the future generations, right? Because at the end of the day, we're doing this type of work for the future generations, for the people that are behind us, right?
Yeah,
So we're
yeah.
paving the way. And I think, and once again, I want to thank you. We want to thank you for taking your time to do this,
Of course.
to give us your wisdom, to share your experiences with us. And unless you have anything else to say to us, we can conclude this.
The only thing I'll leave it with is my mantra for my brand. My brand is Elevated Ones. This is the logo for it. This is the third eye. If you're not in tune with the third eye, I would say just go do some Googles and hit me up anytime you have some questions about it. I'm very open about this topic. I believe everybody should be in tune with their third eye, their pineal gland. That's what gives you your sense of self, that voice in your head when you're about to do something you shouldn't. That's your third eye talking to you. That's what you should heed to, because that's what's gonna keep you honest. And my mantra is past the moon. We already landed on the moon, DK. I'm gonna throw a DK in there, we landed on the moon. But what's next? Who's gonna pass that? What is past that? And that's what we're gonna find out. Elevated Ones, this is Isaiah the Prophet Velez, and we're here with LANF. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to doing this more with you guys.
Thank you.